We just finished up our conversation with Pat Readyhough, owner of Pond Roofing. He's got some incredible stories about how he became the owner of Pond Roofing, as well as how he has dealt with some of the sticky situations that have come up along the way. I hope you enjoy listening as much as we enjoyed our conversation with Pat Readyhough. All right, so hey, it's John Jorgensen, and welcome to another episode of the Go With John Show. I'm here today with Pat Readyhough, owner of Pond Roofing. Welcome, Pat.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, so it's really amazing. I was reading your bio, and we were talking. We have lived almost parallel lives.
It's funny.
It's actually
maybe a decade apart.
Yeah, but it's scary actually, because my very, very first business I had in my life was a painting business, and you.
Painting.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. What got you into painting? You were in college, right?
I was in college, and back then there was a company called AAA Student Painters.
Right.
And they would recruit college kids and basically give them, set them up with a franchise.
Uh-huh.
And you had a fee for your equipment and everything to get started.
Do you remember how much that fee was? I'm just curious.
I think it was $1,600.
Okay.
It's always stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And so I went all the way to Virginia Tech, and at the end of the school year, there was a guy who had one of those branches up here in North Arlington. Mm-hmm. And he recruited a couple of us to be his painters for the summer.
Right.
And I got halfway through the summer, and I saw what he was doing, and I saw what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was making and what we were making.
Yeah.
And I drove up to the offices in Maryland.
Right.
So up in Laurel.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and I said, hey, I want to know how I get a branch manager position for next year.
Right.
I want my own branch.
Yeah.
They said, well, I was there in paint clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
They said, well, you got to interview and all this stuff. I said, whatever it is, set me up. I need that job.
Yeah.
And I interviewed, and I got, a position. They gave me a couple zip codes as my territory, and I paid the fee, and I went to all the training, and I recruited my guys, and I came home every weekend to knock doors and do estimates in the springtime. And it was it ruined me in a way, right? Because I could never really work for anybody else.
Yeah.
Again.
It's addictive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's funny you mentioned door knocking. I used to do that too. It's really, I don't know if you could do that anymore. Do people?
You have to have a license.
Yeah.
Just register basically with the county.
Yeah, so. But when I say door knocking, I mean, I don't think people are as receptive to door knocking as they used to be 20, 30 years ago.
They're not. And, it's definitely not as easy. There are companies that do roofing, siding, windows, and doors that just beat the heck out of people's doors still.
Right.
And really badger them. And people are, but they get a live one every now and then. We don't want to have anything to do with it.
Well, what I started doing when I got too busy really to just knock doors was use the door hangers,
Oh, sure.
And every job I did, 6 or 10 houses on either side and 20 houses across the street. And, you leave 30 or 40 of those behind every time. It's amazing.
Oh, for sure.
How much business you get out of that.
That's something we're trying to get back to. We might create a position called a brand ambassador who goes and just does that kind of stuff out in the field, around our job sites. And
it's good.
Visit customers.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good process to have in place.
Yeah.
So another thing, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we're both bass players.
For sure.
And we both wanted to be guitar players.
Right.
It's funny. I bought there was a place called Rolls Music in Falls Church, and I walked in there. I can't remember the owner's name. I can't remember what his name was. Rick. I think it was Rick.
And, great shop.
In 1995, I walked in there and I told him, hey, I want to be a guitar player. And the guy sold me a 1995 Fender Stratocaster. And plus, it was a Strat Plus and a Blues DeVille 212 amp.
Nice.
Got every penny I had saved in my whole life out of me on that one trip. And I went home and I was going to be a guitar player. And to this day, I still have that guitar and amp.
Yeah.
And I never, ever, ever could get off the ground with guitar. And I switched over to bass about 5 years later and loved it, and it just, there's nothing better. But
no, it's a lot of fun. And, like I was telling you before we started, I switched to bass because there were so many dang guitar players in my high school that were all better than me, but nobody wanted to play bass. So I could be in any band I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I was in a few different bands throughout high school.
Yeah.
And now I try to find time to play. I've got my gear at my office, hanging on the wall. And when everybody goes home, I turn on. I've still got my stereo from when I was in high school.
Right.
That really cranks, and I've got my books of CDs, and I'll put on Guns N' Roses CD, and I'll just play along as loud as I can for an hour if I can manage it. You know?
It's quite a release.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You can't think about anything else.
Exactly.
You can't think about the problems of the day when you're trying to get through a song.
Exactly.
Mental break.
So did you ever play in bands out like gigging on a regular basis?
In high school, playing parties and stuff. It's funny. I played at my wife's 16th birthday party, but I didn't know her yet.
Oh my God!
The drummer had gone out with her once or something, and he was like friends with her. He's like, "Hey, I got us a gig, guys." And we're like, "How much does it pay?" He's like, "Well, we're playing for free, but it's this girl Cindy's birthday party. It's her 16th birthday. It's gonna be awesome." And we played in the clubhouse at Mantua.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, but I think I saw her once there. I didn't actually even know her.
Wow.
I met her like a year later, really.
Isn't that funny?
It's funny.
It is a small world.
Yeah.
It is a small world. So another thing that we have in common, I think, is our passion for customer service and processes. And I was reading your bio before you came in. It's really, the parallels between what you've done and your passions and what I've done and my passions are just mind-boggling, really.
It's kind of funny, and I guess that's kind of obviously we might have been cut from the same cloth to some degree, and then just when you bootstrap your businesses to begin with, and you've run small businesses that are very much customer oriented. I mean, if you're doing anything at a house with a homeowner, you learn pretty quick. That's all about that customer experience.
It is. Well, that customer is your boss, even if you don't know
it. They're your
boss.
If you went into business in home improvements and not have a boss, forget it. You've got a new boss every day.
That's right.
I don't know. There's a lot of satisfaction in getting from a phone call to about, hey, can you give me a price on this, to the end, and they're happy with whatever you changed about their house.
Right.
However short or long that journey is, whether it's a quick paint job, or one day, put new windows in a house, or put an addition on the house that takes months.
Right.
They are your boss for a while, and you learn that customer experience is everything. They can get you more clients. Mm-hmm. It can get you paid. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think your average homeowner out there has any concept what goes on behind the scenes when they make that phone call to any company, really. No. And you're in roofing. I'm building homes with Stanley Martin. We've both been painters, and it does. When you're a really small shop, like when you're one guy and you're painting houses, and you get that phone call, and you go out and you do the estimate, and you paint the house, and you collect the money, and you don't have anybody else with you. It's really pretty simple and straightforward, right?
For sure.
As soon as you start bringing other humans into your sphere, now you have the whole concept of human error that shows up every day.
There can be human error. You've got, of course, at a certain point, you need those people to you have to help that experience along.
Exactly.
As the one-man band, you can only get to so many of them.
Right.
But once you bring other people in, you've got to have it scripted. You got to have a system, a process. You got to get into specialization, so everybody knows their role, and they just pick it up like clockwork. And and it costs money.
It does. It does, and folks don't realize that.
They don't realize. I love hearing somebody say, "Look, I don't want to pay for your overhead."
Right.
And it's like, well, that I don't call it overhead. I call it operating, expense, operating revenue, and that's what gets the materials on the job site.
Yeah.
That's what gets this drawing done, so that my guys that show up to do the work actually know what to do when they get to your house, and that that pays for the supervisor to come by and make sure everything's okay, and all this stuff that is that you expect.
Well, I think the biggest thing, too, is I say to folks, you actually do want to pay the overhead because you want us to be in business so we can warranty the work that we're doing. Yeah,
for sure. The funny thing about that is sometimes you get the customer who says, well, I'm selling the house. I don't really care about the warranty.
Right.
You say, okay, that's fine. You know, I had a young salesman who got stuck saying that all the time. And I said, listen, you need to explain to the customer that, yeah, great, you don't care about the warranty. What about everything leading up to that? This is going to cost you $15,000, let's say. You want to spend that money once. You want it to go well.
Yeah.
You don't want any hiccups.
Yeah.
Some of it's going to overhead that ensures that there's no hiccups and that we're here if you do have a problem.
Exactly.
And you know, if you have that conversation with most people, they get it. Mm-hmm. And then they're very happy to, you know, they go, okay, yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be the guys that have to go find the crew that's going to install the stuff and manage getting materials there. And but they just think of this thing as like, well, you just have this high overhead, and they don't understand, well, that's what makes the company, and otherwise you could do it yourself. Right?
Exactly.
Just go find the guys to go put the shingles on the roof.
Right. So let's get into this, right?
Sure.
Because I think, you know, for me, I really understand like all the little steps. Like we have broken down our entire process into, I mean, I want to say we probably have 30 or 40 steps that somebody has to go through just in the sales process when they buy a new home from us, right? Yeah. And we break it down into, you know, when a prospect contacts us, they go into our system as a prospect, and then we have several steps that we go through to qualify them, right? To figure out where do they want to build, what's their budget, have they spoken to a lender about construction financing. So we have all this stuff that we do just to kind of help the prospect figure out if this is something they really want to do. And then we step by step all the way through. And I know when I have my painting company, we had similar processes. Yep. When I had my water damage company, it was all about processes. So what do you do at your company when with your prospects that come in? Let's talk about the prospects, and then let's also talk about your employees. So what kind of processes do you have that you think are awesome? Yeah,
so first of all, the whole thing is awesome. Right?
It is. I agree. I agree.
And that's kind of like where I've found myself is just constantly tweaking that process to make it better for the customer.
Yeah.
You know, and so if somebody calls in, they're getting one of my two sales coordinators, and they're responsible for getting that person an appointment with an estimator. If it's something, you know, they've got their questions that they're going to ask to make sure it's something that we do. If it's, you know, like we don't do new construction.
Right.
If they're calling and they say they want to send us plans, you know what? We don't do that because when we step outside of the process we've set up, things go awry.
Yeah,
if we can stick to our process.
And let me just I want to interrupt you there because that is probably the hardest lesson I had to learn, and you probably had to learn it too, right? You're a young entrepreneur and you're out there working and you've got your kind of stuff that you do, and then somebody says, "Wow, man, he did a really good job on that roof down there. I wonder if he can put a new front door in for me," right?
Sure. Yeah.
And you're right. Being true to your processes and staying in your lane is so important.
Stay in your lane or have a good. It's funny you mentioned roof and then door, because that's how actually I got my start with Pond, which we can get into later. But they were doing roofing and they wanted to get indoors. Yeah. And that's how I came into the picture. But
and I didn't know that.
They knew better than to just dabble.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's how we found each other. But so you know, we get them an appointment. We send an estimator. It's at a specific time.
Right.
The estimator is going to show up, and then he has his own step process. You know, needs to gather some information, needs to go do an inspection, needs to measure, create a proposal, talk about options, and move on from there. We have an electronic proposal, you know, system that's we have a screen share built into it, so we can, especially in these days, you know, we can do our presentation remotely.
Yeah, that's nice.
The guys can, you know, they can sit in their truck in the driveway, get the customer on the phone and present their proposal to them while they sit in there on their iPad or something. E-signature, all that.
Right.
But you know, all the details, all the selections, before that customer signs off and gives us a deposit, they have to choose everything. We don't want any options left for them to choose. Like the way our system's set up, the proposal, it's really neat. It's a program called One Click Contractor. But so one click gets you to a proposal,
Yeah.
and another click gets you to an agreement.
Right.
And before it can go to agreement, everything has to be chosen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no potential later for I haven't picked my siding color yet.
Right.
We don't want those hiccups later in the process.
Right.
So then paperwork makes its way back through the office. Deposits get recorded.
Mm-hmm.
The accountant does her thing. The sales coordinator do their part to get it into our moved along further in our CRM, which has a great project management aspect to
Which
it.
CRM do you use?
We use one called Contractors Cloud.
Okay.
We used to be on a program called Improve It 360. It's a Salesforce platform.
Right.
It was great. We didn't have the ability to manage the production process the way we wanted. And this was very customizable because we already had our process. And we wanted to capture that electronically. And this Contractors Cloud allowed us to do that by setting up milestones and it creates tasks, and it can't, the contract's not allowed to move forward if there's not a photo that's labeled attic
Right.
in the file.
Right.
It just won't allow it. Somebody better go get that photo of the attic.
Right.
Stuff like that. So it's kind of, that's kind of cool. And then it makes its way through production.
Right.
I've got an operations manager. If it's a repair, we have a repair department manager. We've got a production coordinator named Natalie, who's awesome at taking the proposal and the drawing that the estimator did of the, let's say it's a roof job, and recreating that into this form that we have that is basically the work order for the day of the installation. It's got every little detail on it. It's going to have the list of materials, any special instructions, things like that.
Yeah.
But we don't skip that. There's not a roof that goes to the field without all of these pieces.
Right. You have to create the sales order.
Yep.
Then you have to fill the sales order.
Exactly.
It's exactly like building a house. Our sales orders are a little more complicated than the roofing sales orders.
Exactly.
Right?
We've got some touch points on the way with communication. Like when that contract first came in, the sales coordinators send out a welcome email and then a reminder of things for the day of installation. And then that production coordinator sends the same reminders.
Right.
And she has a script that she goes through when she calls to confirm. And it's a list of about 12 items that she has to tell them about.
So
cars
tell
in
who?
the driveway.
The homeowner?
The homeowner,
Okay.
homeowner. Yeah.
Okay.
Call the homeowner and it's like, hey, don't forget, if you've got things in your attic, get them covered or pull them out of there.
Right.
Take your cars out of the driveway.
Yeah.
These types of things.
Common sense things.
That people need to be told and reminded.
And that is the hardest part about business, are all the little things that are happening around you every day that you have to control, that are literally out of your control.
They are. And a lot of them, like you just said, they're common sense, right? So we'd love to say, well, come on, Miss Smith, like you knew we were bringing materials in a dump truck.
Yeah.
Why did you leave your cars in the garage and now you can't get out and you're mad at us?
Right.
It's common sense. Well, over the years, we take note of all these things and they come into a list, and we're going to send it to you electronically, in writing. Yeah. But we're going to take the most important ones and we're going to review them with you, because we're not going to just assume that you have common sense, not to offend
and really, I don't think you will, but the homeowner's not doing this every day, right? No, so it wouldn't even occur to them that you're bringing in, 150 tons of equipment and leaving it in the way of their car. Yeah.
Every now and then you get a homeowner says, well, boy, I sure wish somebody would have told me such and such. It's like, well, we told you 3 different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I hear something, for the 5th time in a short amount of time that, like, I wish I had known X, well, then it's time to look at our process and see, well, what do we need to do?
Yeah, you're exactly like
to
I
fix
am.
That,
yeah, if the same issue comes up repeatedly, then it's not really the customer, it's you, right? And you've got to take ownership of it.
Got to take ownership.
How to fix it. Yeah,
fix the process. Put a system in place. Like when you tear off a roof, there's 10,000 nails on an average roof. So you're tearing off 10,000 nails that need to make it in a dumpster.
Yeah.
And then you're putting a new 10,000 nails up.
Yeah.
And you probably brought 12,000 with you, and some of those coils get, spun off.
Seen it, been there.
End up in the bushes. So the guys drag magnets when they're done. We've got tarps on the ground, and we've got things in place to try to, eliminate as much of that as possible. But before those guys leave, they've got to drag the magnet and check the bushes one last time. Despite all of that, and despite us jumping up and down on the crews, all the time, we still would get complaints sometimes about cleanup.
There would be one nail
One nail.
And it would
10
end up
nails
in the homeowner's tire.
in their tire. Yeah. I don't care. They've got a dog that carried one up to the back door. And you're like, oh my gosh. So we added a guy who his job is to go back to the job site and just double check cleanup. Drag the magnet one more time. It's the day after. Yeah. He's not tired from installing a roof all day and trying to get home. It's just that's part of his job. Now he's a roaming supervisor. It's just something we added to that role to go back and check yesterday's customers one more time.
That's fantastic.
And now there's nobody complaining about cleanup.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just the simplest thing.
And you feel good.
I feel great.
Because you have eliminated a problem and you're providing a better experience for your customer, which helps you sleep better at night.
We hated getting that call.
Of course.
That's certainly not what we intended for our customer, to have to worry about cleaning up some nails.
Yeah.
So how can we fix it? Let's just add it to this role.
No, that's awesome. Fantastic.
And that's part of the process, right? Again, back to the process. We've got the roaming supervisor. He's going to show up on the job site. He's going to help make sure everything's safe, that the guys have what they need, that the customer's happy, they got any questions. Yeah. Make sure the job gets done right, and then go back one last time. And then the estimator goes back and does a true final inspection. Make sure it was done the way he sold it.
Yep.
And we don't ask for their final payment until that's done.
Yeah,
and
makes
they
sense.
say, yeah, I'm happy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I mean, there's some little steps in there, on top of that.
There's a million.
But
I bet you.
That's the basic, anywhere along the way, any of those big steps, if we can tweak something, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So homeowners that are calling you, they just want a new roof.
That's right.
And all this other stuff you have to do really behind the scenes, I think is really awesome. And I think some of those things folks are going to really care deeply about. But at the end of the day, they want to call you, they want a fair price, and they want the roof on the house, and they probably would prefer if it kept the weather out, right?
That's right. They want it done right. And they don't think about what a big project it is. We're ripping the lid off of your house.
Right.
You're right. They just want it done. So that's our job. That's what we get paid to do, is make it as seamless as possible through the whole process, and especially the day of, right? We don't need problems that day.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with more from Patrick, owner of Pond Roofing. I'm John Jorgensen, and if you want to learn more about buying a home or selling your existing home, contact us through the show. We work with an incredible network of professionals who can help you get through the process smoothly. Again, that's gowithjohn.com. All right, we're back with Patrick Readyhough, with owner of Pond Roofing. So I want to go back for a second, because we were talking a lot about processes in the first segment, and you brought up during the break that you feel that you probably picked up some of this process DNA from being in the restaurant business.
For sure, I mean, my first job was in high school working as a dishwasher for a pizza place called Pico's. And, there's a process for everything in a restaurant.
Yes.
Right? In any decent restaurant, and if you work for the right restaurant group, some places are going to have more processes than others. But you've got customers you got to make happy.
Yeah.
If you're the dishwasher, you've got to keep, the cooks and the waitstaff happy with clean dishes.
Yeah.
I moved on to making pizzas, and so I've got to make the waitresses happy and get their pizzas out quick enough, and that's making the customers happy. And if it's like, if you're making this type of pizza, there's a process for how to layer the toppings.
Right.
Everything's process and customer service.
Yeah. So then you get out in your and then you also got some process experience with your painting franchise.
Yeah, the painting franchise, they had some great processes, and they had some great tools for breaking down, okay, if you want to sell this much work, like if you want to produce this much work and make this much money, let's reverse engineer that, right? So back then, if you could do $60,000 worth of painting in a summer, that was great. So how many weeks do you have? How many thousands of dollars worth of painting do you have to do a week to get there?
Right.
Okay, if you can sell 25% of everything you look at, then how many customers do you need to get in front of? And so then how many doors do you need to knock on to get those people to do estimates for? And you just work it backwards and then put the formula to work for you.
Right.
You know, there were some guys who they didn't buy into the process. They didn't drink the Kool-Aid, let's say.
Yeah.
And halfway through the summer, they'd be like, yeah, I got screwed by student painters.
Right.
You know, they got my $1,600 for my, you know, my startup kit, and I got screwed by them. Well, those guys didn't want that $1,600.
No, they didn't. No.
You know, they wanted a cut of all of that $60,000 worth of painting you were going to do.
Right.
They gave you every opportunity to succeed. Coaching, the formulas, you just didn't put it to work. I put it to work.
Yeah.
And I love that. So I always have felt like really any business, especially anything in home services, can be run very similarly, right? You have a formula, pay attention to customer experience, pay attention to process, and work your formula, and you can be successful at it. You just got to kind of stick to the plan.
Yeah, sticking to it. That's hard to do also
It
sometimes.
is.
Yeah. So let's talk about because I know I've been a contractor my whole life.
Sure.
And things go wrong. And you know, you get a couple of contractors around and you're drinking a beer on a Friday night. There's not a week goes by that you don't have a new story.
Oh.
So
sure.
tell us, like, what are some of the crazy things that you've had to deal with as a business owner or just anything at all that
Sure. A couple things come to mind. One, which, you know, you and I briefly spoke about, was we put a roof on a house, and it was sometime in the first 6 months after the roof went on that we got a call, and they were frantic, and they were mad, and they were cussing, and they not only did they call and leave messages for everybody they knew in the company, they sent emails, and you know, and they'd already put a review up.
Right.
You know, they're
a
brand
bad
new,
review?
a bad review.
Yeah.
You know, they had done a nice review.
Right.
Now
well,
they're
so you put the roof on the house.
Put the roof on the house.
And
everything's
then
fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
They,
and then
they
what did the
paid.
homeowner?
They were happy as can be. It rained on the house for
rained.
months.
Months.
For months. No problem.
And
But
then what happened? From the homeowner's perspective, what happened?
From the homeowner's perspective, these guys did a terrible job. My roof is now leaking. There's water coming in.
Water's coming into the house.
It was coming through the ceiling. They're freaking out, and they're, you know, and we're like, okay, no problem. We have a process.
Yes.
We've got a guy who's going to come look at this. No problem. Calm down.
Right.
And he went out there, and he came back with a photo of a tree branch that had stuck to the roof like a missile.
Right.
You know, it fell out of this large oak tree right above the house.
Right.
Who knows how long it had been sitting there.
Yeah.
And when it rained hard, the water poured in around there and dropped part of their ceiling, and it was a big mess. Didn't have anything to do with our roof.
Right.
And to be honest, we fixed it for free.
Yeah.
Not their interior damage.
Right.
But we patched the roof up because, hey, we're here. We can pull the tree branch out and we'll fix it. But yeah, it was a whole lot of yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
You know, thinking that we did something wrong.
So they obviously probably happened over a weekend, right? Because this kind of stuff never happens during business hours, right?
It was definitely like it started on a Sunday, and they were, you know, by Monday morning we were getting blown up, and we were like, what just happened?
Yeah. So they had the reviews online.
Yeah, and they took it down, and they apologized, and they were, you know, very happy and went back to being a happy customer, but. You know, and honestly, we've had a couple of those. That one was like the biggest, right? But we've had other ones where similar things happen. They call up, they're mad. You've just put this roof on last year.
Yeah.
And look, roofs don't just go bad all of a sudden. If it's rained on it for a year, there's something else going on.
Yeah.
We will never try to diagnose that over the phone.
Sure.
We've got a process. We've got a guy.
Right.
He's coming.
Right.
But we find tree branches in roofs.
Yeah. And I think that's a great, one of the things I've learned because, you know, being in business, we have processes for all those things. You know, when I'm a consumer, I spend money, I buy things, I do research, I choose companies, and things go wrong sometimes. And what I do personally now is I'll call the company and I'll say, hey, I bought XYZ and ABC just happened. What is your process for this? So I just actually... And I've had really good success with I get a really good reception from the company because they know now that this is just stuff happens, right?
Sure.
It's just a fact of life. Nothing is perfect, and you got to work through it. So what else? You got another?
You know, one of my favorite ones. I keep a voicemail on my phone. Mm-hmm. It's been there since 2014, and it's a reminder that, you know, if you just do the right thing, everything's going to turn out right.
Yeah.
So we were doing a townhouse roof, and my guys pulled up, and they backed the dump truck up. And townhouses are tough, right?
Yeah.
Because you got parkings right up against houses. So
Yeah.
he put this dump truck right up against the curb, and he went knocking on doors to ask customers to move their cars away from either side of our dump truck. And this lady came out, and she said, yeah, that's my car right next to your truck. And we just barely started tearing off the roof. I don't think anything had even been carried to the truck yet. She backed her car straight across the parking lot into another spot. And she got out, and she walked around and looked at her tires, and she went and got them, and she said, got my foreman, Don, and she said, hey, there's a roofing nail in my tire.
Right.
And he's like, well, how can that be? Like, you
Yeah.
know, okay. And he goes and he looks at it. And the nail had been worn off. Like there was no nail head on it. It was rusted, and you could see. She'd been driving with this nail in her car for some time.
Right.
And he kind of pointed that out to her as nice as he could. She said, but it wasn't there before. That's all she said.
Right.
And she kept saying that. So he called me and he sent me the picture of the nail, and I got on the phone with her and I tried to explain to her, and she just kept saying, but it wasn't there before. And I just, at that point, what are you going to do? I'm not going to win this. So I said, no problem. I'd love to have the tire plugged for you. Where do you want to take it? I'm going to take it to this place down the road. I said, great. Call me when you get there. I'll give them my credit card, whatever we need to do. Well, she got there, and it was an all-wheel drive car. And they said, no, you have to, there's 10,000 miles on the tires. So we got to replace the 2 back tires.
Right.
So now we're not just, it's in the sidewall or something. We can't just plug the tire.
Yeah.
It's got to be replaced. Oh, by the way, it's 2 tires. And, and I said, okay, it's like $500-600 worth of tires for a nail that wasn't ours.
Right.
And I said, so I got the guy on the phone at the tire place. I said, that's not my nail, right? He said, oh yeah. I said, anything you can do on price, please help me. He said, no problem. He took like $80 off.
Yeah.
I paid the bill, and that was kind of the end of it. She was, kind of thankful, but whatever.
Pissed off that you didn't put the nail in her tire that she's giving you credit for.
Yeah,
right.
So okay, everything's fine. I'm thinking it's done. The next day, which happened to be a Saturday, I got an angry call from our customer. She's mad because this lady's husband came over and burned her up about the 2 tires that had to be replaced. How we popped 2 tires. This is what he was saying. And I said to our customer, I said, well, hold on, ma'am. Let me tell you the story of what happened here. And I explained it to her, and I said, you understand that wasn't our nail, and I did everything possible to try to avoid just this type of situation.
Yeah.
And she said, yep, I get it. No problem. And she was very happy with us already, but glowing reviews, all this stuff, they go above and beyond because we had. And then I got a voicemail from the lady going on and on, talking about, thank you so much for being so kind and so nice and taking care of this. And it's like she must have seen how her husband reacted with the neighbor and realized, you know what? That guy did the right thing.
Yeah.
So it's just a reminder. I still have it on my phone.
That's awesome.
We listen to it every now and then. And I tell my guys, I'm like, this was not our problem.
Yeah.
But we fixed it anyway.
Yeah.
And if, that's $500-600 we spent on those tires, if we hadn't done that, it would have cost us thousands and thousands in business.
Right.
With that lady taking to the internet, crushing us.
Yeah.
So just do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the internet's an amazing thing.
My gosh.
It's good. It's good and bad. Do the right thing is important. But it's funny that reminds me of a story that I've told for years and years. I don't know if Nick's heard this one or not yet. The side of beef. So when I owned a water damage company, we used to have to move stuff around to get carpet out. Right. If you have a flood in your house, you got to pull up the carpet.
Sure.
You got to get the pad out. You got to throw the pad away. So we would always run into all this bizarre stuff. I have 10,000 stories that I'm not going to tell, but this one in particular stuck with me. So I get a call one day from a homeowner that we had serviced, and she said, "Hey, your guys were here yesterday, and they unplugged my freezer that was downstairs, and they moved it to get the pad out. It was on some carpet, and they forgot to plug it back in. And I had some meat in there, and the meat went bad, and I had to throw it away, and I would like you to replace it." I said, "Great. Well, what was in there?" And she told me, and it was like $50 worth of meat, right? The next day she calls back again and she said, I didn't realize exactly how much was in the freezer. It's more like $250 worth of meat and I've got it thrown out and I would appreciate if you would pay for it. Now I originally told her, sure, you know what, I'll take care of it, right?
Sure.
I didn't even ask. So now it's $250. The next day she calls back again. Now they had just bought a side of beef and they had thrown the whole thing away. So at this point, I had to get the insurance company involved. Yeah. But, sometimes that do the right thing as a business owner can totally work against you because
for sure.
Once they get you kind of going, they keep you coming, and it's it's painful.
I had something like that years ago before I owned Pond. I was a one-man band selling roofing, siding, windows, and doors, and I did a siding job for a customer. And we have this reminder, for the day of siding installation that says, anything you have hanging on the walls that's delicate, whatever, fragile, take it down because there's a lot of pounding. And she swore up and down that I never told her that this could happen, but I always delivered that fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hummel figures. She was this German woman. She's very nice, but her Hummel figures. And I said, and her husband was no help. He was a very nice man, but he was afraid of her.
Yeah.
And he said, he just kind of stood back with his hands up and I said, well, look, I don't want to ruin this. I had done, there's a pipe stem of houses, 6 houses. I had put windows in every one of the houses on there. I got a package deal working for everybody, did some siding for some of them, some doors. I mean, I wasn't going to ruin this over some Hummel figures. And I said, well, look, I gave you this.
Right.
You didn't read it, but whatever you think is fair, I'll take my share. She charged me like $600.
Wow.
For she was relentless. It's
right.
$600, and it was probably, honestly, I mean, I didn't know. I wasn't probably pricing things right back then, so that was probably all my profit on the side job. But I paid her the $600 because.
Wow.
But yeah, I think she heard me say, I'll do whatever you think is fair, and where most people, I believe, will come up with something fair, she just went for the jugular.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, people smell an opportunity. And
it's funny, man, because I don't think about these very often,
Right.
but you asked the question, and they
well,
keep coming.
I think I mean part of what I'm trying to do with this podcast is try to show a different light on what's really going on out there.
Sure.
When people are calling you for a roof and they don't realize that 20 minutes ago you just got off the phone with a customer that's ready to take your head off because their roof is leaking, not because of something you did wrong,
right,
but because a branch fell through. And we get shot first and people ask questions later all day long.
We do.
And then at the same time, you may have just taken a bullet. You got to answer the phone and talk to Mrs. Jones down the street, and she wants a roof, and you got to put your happy face on, and you're still trying to address your wounds, right, from your last call.
Still trying to recover.
Yeah, so it's an interesting. I mean, I think I love it. I thrive on it, and I think obviously you do too. I think anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, you have got to thrive on overcoming obstacles.
Oh, for sure.
Challenges.
You have to be ready to just dig in and see it through.
Yeah.
You can't just in the middle of one of those throw your hands up and say, I don't know, and just walk away. You have to see it through. Now, there are guys that just walk away, and they're the ones that create all these terrible stories about contractors.
Right.
They don't respond.
Right.
When they do respond and they come up against something tough, they throw up their hands and walk away. And that's when you got to dig in and just, I got to see this through.
Yeah.
It's kind of like not burning the bridge with your, previous employer or something.
Right.
You just, things get rough and you know you're leaving. You just got to stick it out. Get through it. This has to be all right. Then leave.
Yeah.
You don't like this girl anymore. You're not going to date her.
Right.
Get through the tough part. You break up with her. It's going to be rough.
Exactly.
But it doesn't have to be a war of the roses.
Exactly.
Right?
You're exactly right.
But people get stuck. I maintain, and I tell my guys every day, I'm like, listen, the contractors that are out there giving contracting a bad reputation. Everybody's got a terrible story about a contractor,
right?
Kind of screwing them or something, you know.
Yeah.
Something
Well, there's plenty of them out there.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, it's because guys don't have a process.
Right.
They don't have systems to try to eliminate the problems that could come up, and to show the customer, hey, look, we have these fail safes.
Yeah.
So that there's this level of trust that, okay, I feel good. You've got a way to get through this.
Yeah. Well, it's even worse than that. It's not that they don't have a process. They don't even know they're supposed to have a process.
No, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I want to close out the final segment. I want to hear the story about how you ended up at Pond Roofing as the owner.
Sounds good.
A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin custom home. So we are back with Patrick Readyhough from Pond Roofing. And so, Patrick, let's wrap up because you got a great story. So you went to Virginia Tech.
Yep.
You started a painting company.
Sure.
And then just kind of step us through quickly, like what happened and how did you end up at working with Pond Roofing?
So after college, a buddy said, come to Richmond and sell windows for me. And I said, that sounds like selling paint jobs. So sounds great. So I did that. And then I ended up working for Toll Brothers back up here in Northern Virginia. I was in their project management training program. And I liked that, but it was a little too much corporate stuff for me.
Right.
And so I ended up going back to work for the first window company, but their branch up here in Fairfax as their operations manager.
Okay.
So I got, I knew the sales side. I knew sales and production from running the painting business.
Right.
Now I know some corporate tricks,
right.
More process stuff. And I went, and learned the operations side of the remodeling business. And at a certain point, it was time to, start my own company.
Right.
And so I did that, and I was out painting again and hanging. I'd be on the ladder painting a piece of crown molding that I had hung, and then I got a sales appointment. I changed my shirt.
Oh, that's so tough.
And run from Mount Vernon to Reston, and
yes.
and that was great fun. And I sold that company, and went to North Carolina with my wife. We didn't have any kids. We said we're going to live somewhere cheaper, and I went down and started a home building business with a buddy of mine in Charlotte. And we built 2 homes on spec.
Yeah.
Got them sold right before 2008. Demolished
Lucky you.
us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we were remodelers, And so then it took a couple years to sell our house and get back up here. I just wanted to get back here where family was. Our whole, we grew up together, and I knew I could make money in remodeling in the DC market.
Sure.
Regardless of, what the economy was doing. So we came back and I started up another small company, roofing, siding, windows, and doors. Got all my old installers, back. And pretty quickly I was introduced to Betsy Pond.
Right.
So that was 2010.
Yeah.
There was a mutual supplier representative who was just an awesome guy. He always had looked out for me with my earlier businesses. And he said, hey, do you know Pond Roofing? I said, I know who the company is. I don't know anything about him. He says, well, why don't you go meet Betsy Pond? She's got some doors that need to be installed. And he knew I had a great window and door installer. So I said, okay. And I went, and Betsy and her cousin Margie were working there, and they grilled me for 2 hours.
Right.
I didn't understand what was going on, really. I didn't really know why I was there. But when they were done, they said, well, so we've got a customer who wants these doors. And they wanted to get into selling more doors and windows. They just didn't know how to do it. And they said, so how do we make this work? I thought the doors were sold and they just need them installed. I said, well, they said, well, should we just refer them to you? And it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I got to make the right decision.
Right.
So I said, here's the deal. If you give that lady to me, I'm going to go sell her a door. I'm going to do a really good job, and then she's going to be my customer. She's not going to call you again. I'm going to be her new contractor. And you have an almost 50-year-old company. I don't think you should give away your customers like that. So give me some shirts, give me your contracts. Here's my price book. Make me a part-time salesperson for you, and you can have my company install the products.
Right.
And they thought that was great. And we worked out how the money was going to work.
Right.
And every time I walked into that office, they asked me to do something else.
Right.
Hey, can you do this? We're really swamped with roof estimates. Can you do some roof estimates? Sure. And it didn't take long for me to see that, that company had grown from when Betsy had taken over from her dad.
Right.
Her employees were asking me some questions about how to do things. And I heard her talking about retiring and playing golf and traveling. And so I waited till everybody was gone one day. And I said, hey, what's your plan?
Right.
I heard you talking about retiring. What's the plan? And she said, I don't know, but I could use a little help. I said, all right, well, I've got a little company. I want a bigger company.
Right.
You got a nice sized company and you want no company.
Right.
And we need to help each other. We need to figure out, you can sell me your company. There's a lot of different ways to make this happen. I could run it for you for a few years and you can give it to me.
Right.
We'd start a buyout process, whatever you think. And so we talked, and then we figured the best way was for me to come on board. On a handshake, I merged my little company with Pond. I brought my installers over, brought my contacts, and I became...
So what year was that?
That was 2010.
Okay.
Well, sorry. We were working together through 2010. It was right at the beginning of 11 that I became the vice president of Pond Roofing, in charge of sales and production.
Right.
And
what else is there?
That's right. She was in charge of finance. She kept a hold of the numbers. Yeah. And we got to kind of test drive each other while we hammered out the details. And at the end of September of 2012, we had a closing day, like buying a house.
Right.
We went to the lawyer's offices. We signed the paperwork. Our fiscal year ended September back then. So it was, on October 1, that was a new year. And I was the new owner. And she took a note, and, I gave her some money up front, and she got a salary, and I had a few years to pay her off. And she stayed on board and, did some marketing stuff with me, and it was great. She's kind of like my aunt now,
That's awesome.
So that's how I got in. I just saw, growing up around here, I always had this idea that I wanted to own a piece of Fairfax history. Right. In my mind, that was going to be, I was going to buy some old house.
Right.
and renovate it and stuff. And, over the years, I learned to, you have to be open to what's coming. Yeah. It's going to look different than you thought.
Exactly.
And that was my opportunity. I mean, here's this company that started in 1964. Right. It was a well-known company. Like, it couldn't just disappear or have the wrong guy get it and run it out of business or something. And so I figured, okay, this is my thing. I'm going to take this and they had some great employees, great reputation, great, some process, some specialization. And I just thought, okay, I can slowly mold this into something better and bigger and keep it going. And
that's awesome.
That's what we've been doing.
That's really amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great company. You run it well. I had an opportunity to work with your company, albeit it was a really small job. Yeah. Some gutter work in 2013, but cool. We really enjoyed working with your folks. It was a great experience. So in wrapping, and I know we didn't talk at all about this, so I'm kind of throwing you a curveball here. So what advice do you have in closing? Do you have, anything you want to add to your story, or what advice do you have to a youngster out there who's thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur? We've talked about some of the difficulties. I mean, you got to be ready for the good and the bad. It's just what it is. Yeah. But what advice do you have to folks out there that want to go into business, either in home improvement or any line of business?
Yeah, sure. What I'd say is, I didn't know this then. But there is an association or a group for just about every industry. And, so the things that reverberate with me now are copy your way to the top. Right. You don't have to do this alone. There's always some group you can join that has already done what you're doing. I mean, unless you're some sort of innovator and inventor and you're coming up with the next iPhone or something, right? I'm not talking about those types of
You're talking about like trade associations.
I'm talking about trade associations, whether it's, whether you're restaurants or you're home improvement stuff, and there's a lot that falls under that. Any home services, car mechanics, like pretty much any industry, there's somebody that's done it and can help you. And some of the advice is free, you know. So you have to seek those people out, and that's what I've been doing a lot of in the last however many handful of years. I've found some great groups to work with, and I've got buddies all across the country now that I can call up and say, hey, Chris in Massachusetts, like, let me see what some of your marketing stuff looks like.
Right.
And he'll send me a package of all of his stuff. Yeah. And I'll send him a package of my stuff.
And I think that's a really, really great point, because if you can find a peer in another market that's where you guys can communicate freely, and you're not going to feel threatened that your techniques are going to get used against you, that is fantastic advice.
Because those guys will definitely share. I mean, I'm friends with some of my peers around here, and we'll trade a few ideas. Right. But it's not the same as, me getting on the phone with my buddy in Kansas City. Yeah. And talking to him about how he's, marketing windows. Right. I would say, seek those things out, and just learn and be ready to dig in. You have to see it through, and it takes time. Everybody's impatient these days, John. They want it. They're the Instagram, the internet. It's like they see guys flashing stacks of cash like they earned it yesterday, and it's like, that's borrowed money. Right. And you gotta set down a course, and that doesn't mean that you won't kind of change how you're going about it as you go. But get clear on your destination, right, and then set out for it. And take some turns, but gotta have that end goal in mind.
Yeah, that's all good advice. So the funny thing is, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, before the internet, so most of the folks listening don't even realize that the internet didn't exist for you and me when we were young and getting started, right? I mean, the internet to me didn't exist really before 2000. Sure. That's the absolutely late 90s. I remember we were trying to use it as humans, and we sort of had websites, and it was a really
terrible. It was good for email.
Exactly. Yeah. That was it. But yeah, it was really hard back in the day to get business. Today, you can set up a Facebook page, a business page, and you can set up a mechanism to get phone calls, but you've got to be ready to do the work.
You got to be ready to do the work for sure.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, thanks for coming in. Patrick Readyhough, the owner of Pond Roofing, and keeping the legacy alive. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thanks for joining us today, Pat. We appreciate you coming in, and we're now out of time. If you want to learn more about Pond Roofing, you can find a link to their website at gowithjohn.com. Simply find the episode page for Pat's segment, and we'll link to his website. Until next time, this is John Jorgensen. Go build something extraordinary.